But I do remember one of the most sort of valuable things that someone said to me. I actually did a first aid course where I hadn't met her before, but I was, I think, 32 weeks pregnant and she was 36 weeks pregnant. So she was a month ahead of me and she had her beautiful boy. I didn't know what I was having, but I sent her a message and she said, this is the best, you're going to love it. And from that moment on, I was just like, it was so nice to hear that because you do hear a lot of, you know, the sort of the doom and gloom, and I just decided that I was going to, I'm so grateful and lucky to have this happy baby that I'm going to really try and see things as the glass half full.
Hello everyone and welcome to No Place Like Home. I'm Jess. We're here with Larissa.
Hello. They were very dulcet tones, Jess, in that introduction.
And we're also here with Nicole Gleeson.
Oh my goodness me.
Of Rhythm First Aid. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
We would love to know a little bit about you, your story, your
Background, qualifications. You're in an interview now.
It's a job interview. Well, my name's Nicole. As you stated, I'm in my early 30s. I am a nurse. So I've been a nurse for over a decade.
Wow.
My qualifications include, so I have a Bachelor of Psychology, a Bachelor of Nursing. I've got a postgraduate degree in Paediatrics. That's very much my area of specialty. And then a few other things like nurse immunisation, advanced paediatric life support.
Wow.
And some training and assessment qualifications as well.
Did you always know that that's sort of what you wanted to do, or was it something that you fell into? Or
Yeah, I didn't know that I always wanted to be a paediatric nurse, no. Growing up, my mum was a nurse, and growing up I did not like the idea of blood and being a nurse. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do, but felt like psychology and nursing double degree was somewhere in that direction. And then I had it as an undergraduate student. So when I was studying, I had a placement in a paediatric unit and I loved it. So then it was very much, I set on paediatrics and here we are more than 10 years on.
Must be a challenging job. I mean, you would see a lot.
Yeah, you do see a lot. It is a challenging job at times, but it's also a very fulfilling and rewarding job as well. Yeah. There's certainly lots of highs. There's a few lows and it's, the highs are high and the lows are low. But, yeah, it's a great job.
Yeah.
You're a mum?
I am.
At what point did you decide you wanted to start a family? I imagine as a paediatric nurse it would have been, you would see a lot.
Yeah, some days work was like the best contraception that someone could
do. Exactly. At what point did you decide you wanted to start a family?
I've always been quite a maternal person. Like I've always loved kids and always wanted to have children and always wanted to be a mum. And it's very lucky that, the conception period for myself and my husband was relatively straightforward. But as I had probably been ready to have a child a year or two before we started having one. Yeah. My husband was a little bit more, not hesitant, but wasn't quite ready. But then he'll say to his friends now, I wasn't really ready. Like she sort of had to persuade me, but certainly was the best thing that she's ever made me do.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Tell us about your pregnancy and your birth.
Yeah.
Postpartum.
Yeah. So I had a great pregnancy. A few sort of little hiccups along the way, nothing super major. I was quite sort of nauseous and tired and a bit unwell for the first trimester and a bit. It didn't really subside to maybe 19, 20 weeks. I was really sort of hanging on for that 12-week period and it didn't get better and kept going and that was okay. And then mostly uneventful, but a few little things like on my 21-week morphology scan, I was diagnosed with a marginal cord insertion and that was something that I hadn't heard of before.
Yeah, what is that?
So it's when the umbilical cord is on, I guess, a normal or most people, the umbilical cord should be smack bang in the middle of the placenta or quite close to the middle of the placenta, and the umbilical cord where it attaches to the placenta on mine was off to the side a little bit. So it can come with risks that it's a little bit the baby's growth may potentially slow down later on. Like it's a bit harder for the baby to get nutrients and things like that.
Okay.
So to help with that, or to help monitor the growth of the baby, I had to have additional growth scans.
Right.
There wasn't really anything more to do than that, just to keep an eye on it, making sure that I was still growing
Did
well.
you just do that at work? Finish my shift, quick, get a scan, go home. Or...
No, I didn't do it at work. I went to my appointments, but I certainly have colleagues that do have the skills and the equipment to do ultrasounds. But, yeah, it was really nice. I very much tried to look through it as a positive lens. One of my girlfriends who's a midwife, said it's more opportunities that you can have to see a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a nice twist on it.
Yeah.
And any other hiccups or
Then
revelations?
Towards the end, maybe like 30-ish weeks, I had quite bad liver pain, which is really specific. Like I was saying to my midwife, she's like, anything else? I said, my liver is so sore. Like I kept pushing underneath my right rib cage. And she said, I've noticed you've been doing that throughout the appointment. Like, what's that about? I was like, I don't know. It's one-sided. It's really specific. She said, that's so random, but we'll check your liver levels. And checked a couple of things, and my liver, my LFTs, my liver function tests were quite elevated. She said, that's really random, because I looked really well and felt reasonably well throughout my pregnancy, and had a few additional investigations done, and then I was diagnosed with cholestasis, which is like a liver condition in pregnancy. But usually people that have cholestasis have a really bad itch. Have you heard of people that get really, really itchy, and it's like like you can't stop itching?
Yeah.
But I never had an itch, which is like the classic sign of cholestasis. Anyway, my levels were rising quite rapidly, then they sort of plateaued, then they doubled the next week, and it was really confusing for my healthcare team. So they sort of, then diagnosed with cholestasis, says start taking this medication, then don't take the medication. Actually, don't think you've got that anymore. We'll just park it for now. So it's a little bit unclear of exactly what it was, but it was all managed really well.
That's good. And I imagine you were working through your pregnancy. Did you have time to plan for your birth and your postpartum?
Yeah, so I really prioritised my postpartum. I did. I have lots of friends and family members that have had babies, in the months and years before me, and pretty much all of them, their advice always was, that they didn't prepare enough for their postpartum, and that they didn't know what to expect, and their expectations were a little bit high, and that things fell apart a little bit. So for some people, things fell apart quite a lot. And I'm the type of person that likes to know a lot of information, likes to be well educated, and so I certainly sought out a lot of education for the labour, for birth, and for postpartum as well.
Amazing. What did you seek out for postpartum?
I read a few books.
Yep.
I listened to quite a few podcasts. I spoke to friends that had recently been through it, and things that I did was really preparing myself psychologically, physically. So I was really proactive with seeking out support and making sure that I had a village around me, but also that professional village as well. So I knew that there was a psychologist that I could see if I needed one. I had a great chiropractor. I had a great Chinese medicine doctor. I had a great pelvic floor physio, all of these health professionals, that I engaged within my pregnancy to know that if something was to happen or something was to go pear-shaped or down that way, okay, I know I can.
You had them.
It is so incredible that you did that in your first pregnancy. It is so rare.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just from friends being really generous and sharing their experiences with me, and I live in a rural area as well, and I think that was a big part of it that – it's hard to get into a lot of these services no matter where you live, but there is an additional barrier in that geographical location. So I really wanted to make sure I was on the front foot to give myself the best possible postpartum experience.
Amazing. I do want to talk more about your postpartum, but I just want to first, because we skipped over your birth entirely. What about birth? Like, were you so focused on postpartum that you didn't think about birth at all? Or
No, of course I thought about birth.
Yeah.
So my husband and I, we did a 2-day birth course. That was amazing. And again, listened to lots of podcasts, read lots of books, chatted to lots of friends. Very lucky that I had a very positive birth. I really didn't want to be induced. I was offered multiple inductions because of my rising liver levels, and it was a little bit unclear. And then it got to a stage where it was, unclear if things were starting to get a bit dangerous. The waters were just quite muddy. And I went in and had a stretch and sweep, and then after, I'm not sure if it was a coincidence or not, but because I was booked in for an induction 48 hours after, so my midwife recommended that I have a stretch and sweep, and then I went into spontaneous labour. I'm not sure if you still call it spontaneous after a stretch and sweep, maybe. Anyway, 12 hours after the stretch and sweep, and went on to have a great birth. I birthed at a public hospital as a part of a midwife program.
Amazing. So you got that continuity of care.
Had that continuity of care, which was awesome for me. I really loved that model of care. I had a great birth. And I feel like having a great birth really set me up for having a great postpartum experience as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And so how quickly did you go home?
I stayed in hospital for 2 nights. So I gave birth on the Saturday night and was discharged Monday lunchtime maybe. Yeah.
And then because you'd done all this planning, did you just, was it a nice soft landing when you got home? Or?
Yeah, it was. Because I was a part of that midwife group practice program and had that sort of early discharge after a 2-night stay, the midwives came to my house for a couple of days. I can't remember exactly how many days. It might have been, I don't know, on day 4 and then day 6 perhaps. It was nice to sort of check in with them. And then I'd also done a lot of cooking, like so much so that
Oh my God, you're amazing.
I bought an extra freezer for our garage. And stocked it all up myself.
Good on
I don't have a lot of family and friends around where we live.
Of course.
And so it wasn't going to be viable to have a meal train or something like that, with people dropping off food. So I wanted to make sure that I was all sorted, and then anything extra was, I guess, a bit of a bonus. So that was a game changer.
Yeah. And did your partner have time off work? Or
not much. And that's probably why I was really proactive in my postpartum planning, because I was conscious that I was going to be spending a lot of time alone on my own. Don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but he has a lot of support, but he just has a very time intensive job.
Yeah.
And there's certainly no ability to work from home. He's a farmer, so
that's not a work from home job.
There's no work from home. No. There's a little bit of flexibility, but there's certainly no parental leave.
No. No.
Which is okay, and I knew all that, which is why I was so focused on
so
setting myself up.
That you just did all of that.
And did you need to call on, the pelvic floor physio or any of the supports that you put in place, or did you find that the freezer, the extra freezer was enough of a support?
The freezer certainly got to work out. I continued to see a pelvic health physio I was discharged from her at 9 months postpartum. So I was really slow with my pelvic floor recovery, took things really slowly, just wanted to make sure that that everything was all, returned to its baseline and functioning really well. And then, I do to this day continue to see my Chinese medicine doctor for a bit of acupuncture and a bit of chiro here and there, just to keep me sane.
It's maintenance, right?
Yeah, maintenance.
It's so important, and it's so hard to carve out that time and to find the funds to maintain your health. So many people only do those things when they have a crisis or when they need it. But gosh, if you can just do that health maintenance, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And I think as well, like you're saying, that maintenance, and it's almost like preventative care, right? Like it's trying to prevent myself from being entirely depleted by doing these things. And I know at about 4 to 5 months postpartum, I went back to my Chinese medicine. I was like, I just need some help. I was like, I'm just so, I just feel a bit blah.
Yeah.
And
that's even with all the, things that you'd put in place, such as
Yeah.
that, which is testament to just how
Yeah.
demanding motherhood is.
Yeah.
Especially, were you breastfeeding?
I was. I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you still are.
How postpartum are you?
1 year. Almost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
How are you feeling now?
Really good.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I've had a really good recovery. I think I did underestimate how tiring and demanding breastfeeding is.
yeah.
Like how starving you are all the time.
Yeah, you're so hungry. I remember when, the first week we were open and we made a menu that's, chock-a-block full of deliciousness, but these mums, they just don't stop eating. And I remember also when I weaned Jude, just how little I could eat versus when I was breastfeeding. It's astounding how many more calories you need a day to maintain that supply.
Yeah.
We do big snack boxes overnight.
Yeah, we
for
do.
women
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and they're gone in the morning.
I can remember early days, out of my bedside table, I'd have like multiple snacks, like every feed, and I'd be trying not to wake up my husband and like opening like a packet of something like a muesli bar, and it's like so loud.
So necessary though.
Yeah, and he'd probably look at me like, what are you doing? You're eating again. I was just so hungry.
And so are you back at work as in, because we are going to talk about your business.
Yeah.
Are you still on mat leave from your nursing job?
Yes,
Yep.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back very soon in, I guess, a bit of a casual position. And I've extended my permanent job, the parental leave, for a few more months.
Yeah.
Just to have a little bit more breathing space, I guess, with the long commute into the city and business and the transition with my son starting daycare and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did you start your business while you were on mat leave? Or did it exist
No,
already?
it existed beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how's that been? Sort of having, on one hand you've got all this time because you're not at work, but at the same time you're at home with a baby. It's so much more demanding than a full-time job.
It is.
It's more than full-time. So how's that been, trying to manage and juggle it all?
Yeah, it's as you said, it's different type of work.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time prior to being a mum on the road, like driving in and out of Melbourne for shifts at the hospital, but then also driving all around Victoria teaching first aid, as well as doing the admin and all the other little bits and bobs that come with having a small business. So being at home, I got a lot of time back from not driving around so much and not being at the hospital. And it did allow me to have, not in that initial sort of newborn period, but to the times when, Ollie was asleep and he was sort of settled, I could do a little bit of admin and a few things here and there to continue to work quite a bit throughout.
Yeah. It's funny the things you can get done like these days because we have iPhones. Like I know everyone's like, oh, you should be looking into your baby's eyes while you're feeding them. But like when they're on the boob, just like non-stop and their eyes are closed, the amount of I got done.
Yeah, yeah.
I built Mama Goodness while Jude was breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Like that's how all the research I did into bottles and boxes and everything.
Yeah.
Instagram posts, all of it all happened while Jude was on the boob.
Yeah. Yeah, so many things, with your emails, you can at least sort of read them and I just mark them as unread if I need to action them, and some might be a really quick reply or you can get a lot done on your phone. Yeah.
Big question. What are your thoughts on the current state of postpartum care in Australia or even in Victoria?
I think that it's progressing in the right way. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think that there's individuals and groups and some businesses and amazing concepts that are helping to fly the flag of postpartum and places like Homb that are helping educate people on postpartum and the reasons why I've had a great postpartum because there's been education that have helped me to know to do all these things, to have your village, have your health professionals, stock your freezer.
But how do we get people – I know you said your friends had babies before you and, so they told you, but most first-time mums aren't like you. How do we get people to be – you might not know the answer to this. This is, if anyone out there is listening and has a great answer, we would love to hear it. But how do we get people to care and invest in their postpartum in the way that you did. I mean, everything you did is just phenomenal. It's so rare.
Maybe not everything, but I tried.
I think I'm interested to know how your friends articulated to you their experiences without you then going into a fear state or a worry state.
Because this is the other thing we speak about, right? It's like you want to tell people the information is there, but there's such a fine line between scaring people and telling them the realities. And not everybody wants to listen, and some people do have to learn the hard way. But you clearly listened to what your friends told you, and it served you.
Yeah, I think a couple of things, and something also that added to that was I work in an emergency department with really sick babies and children, and I see parents on their worst days. And so my idea of what postpartum might like was the bar was set very, very low. I see people that haven't slept for 4 days. They're, absolutely beside themselves with a sick baby or with a baby that's not very sick, but they are potentially sick. They are really worried. I knew that that's what it could be like, which is why I sought out this preventative healthcare to set me the best possible foundations so that, to prepare myself to, try and thrive throughout this time rather than, just survive. And just surviving is also okay. Definitely had friends who sort of shared their horror stories or their unpleasant experiences, and I still do think about them all, people that tell you their unhelpful birth stories and things like that. I try just to put it to the side. But I do remember one of the most sort of valuable things that someone said to me. I actually did a first aid course for her. I hadn't met her before, but I was, I think, 32 weeks pregnant and she was 36 weeks pregnant. So she was a month ahead of me, and she had her beautiful boy. I didn't know what I was having, but I sent her a message and she said, "This is the best. You're going to love it." And from that moment on, I was just like, it was so nice to hear that.
Yeah.
Because you do hear a lot of, the sort of the doom and gloom. And I just decided that I'm so grateful and lucky to have this happy baby that I'm going to really try and see things as the glass half full.
Yeah.
I didn't mind waking up every couple of hours overnight. Like, I just felt really grateful to have a baby. And I remember one of my cousins saying to me, "Nicole, like, you're used to working a night duties. Like, you'll be okay." And she's like, "It's not like you're waking up at night because someone's, breaking into your house."
Yeah.
It's like you're waking up to this beautiful baby that you love so much, and they just need you. Like, it's actually a really beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
Like, you can think about the way that you view these things.
You sound like you have such a beautiful community around you. Yeah, yeah. I'm just always curious as to listening to women that invest in their postpartum and why they do it.
And how you got there.
How you got there, because it is such a large mainstream narrative to change that, still a lot of women don't even consider their postpartum, and it's such a important part.
It's so important. It's
of
the most important part, really.
I tend to agree with you.
And it's the longest part too, we say postpartum's forever, but even if you are only investing in the first 42 days, it's I mean, obviously pregnancy is longer than that, but it's so much longer than the birth, and it's just, both are so important. But it's really, really, it gives me hope. Speaking to people,
I think
like,
so.
it gives me hope.
And I think as well, like, it is really expensive, and it's something that you need to save up for. In terms of me, I birthed through a public hospital, so I didn't have the private obstetric costs, and so that sort of money that you would spend, I put that towards sort of more allied health.
That's such valuable advice.
I was chatting to a friend before I came, and we were chatting about, the costs of sort of postpartum and all of these things. And I think I heard maybe it was you, Larissa, said once before about, people don't think twice about the amount of money that they spend on a wedding.
Oh, yeah. Jess.
Oh, Jess.
Yeah.
Jess.
But it's also, it's not
little
a
bit
unique concept. It's just
So true.
It's
in this grand scheme of things and in your entire life, if you can, save up this money, or if people want to gift you something, you should I don't know, it's maybe a bit uncomfortable to ask, but would you feel comfortable putting money towards something for your postpartum?
Well, that we had, we've spoken to one of my former postpartum clients who had a fund, and she owns a children's store. So she didn't need anything for the baby or for herself.
Yeah.
She just wanted support. And
wanted a postpartum doula.
so she had
started
a fund. And anybody, instead of buying, a onesie or a blanket or anything like that, she just said, if you feel comfortable, a small donation to that fund would be so beneficial. And I think, it's the best present. And it's so difficult because people, for some people also buying those big ticket items like the pram and the car seat, like having friends chip in for that is so beneficial if you don't have the finances to be buying those things. Yeah. But also, anyone that feels comfortable asking for help with their postpartum support. I think it's a wonderful gift.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to getting a bit wrapped up in having everything brand new and looking nice and having that pretty nursery. I'd prefer to get, say, if you're speaking in money terms, $2,000 to put towards a postpartum doula and buy a pram off Marketplace.
Yeah.
As an example.
Yeah,
like there's different ways you can do
things. We don't want to upset the pram companies, but I do agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. If that's what it came down to.
We've had quite a few people invest, and call and say we're purchasing a gift voucher for a friend of ours to come and stay at home. That's also been really nice to know that people are doing those sorts of things.
That is the best gift. If any of my friends and family are listening and I'm pregnant next time, that's what
hint, Nicole wants home vouchers.
People do wishing wells for weddings.
Yeah.
Why do a wishing well for
Yeah.
So instead of the baby shower, we come to your house and we cook something together and then we have a wishing well for your postpartum fund. How nice would that be?
How good is that? Yeah. We are going to chat to you in the next episode. Thank you so much. We're going to talk more about your incredible business. Thank you.
Thank you.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate based on the best available information at the time of recording, we welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website contact form, homb.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow for anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Homb Postpartum.